For joining us.
All right, so we're recording now, and you're a co-host, so you can share screens.
All right. So welcome everyone to this Wayfinding Signage Task Force meeting. And I just have to figure out how to get this up. Okay, can you all see Wayfinding Signage?
Hey, Jesse.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you're jumping right into the presentation or not. Was that the plan?
That was the plan.
Just totally for procedure's sake, let's do agenda items 2 and 3. The additions, deletions, or corrections. There's no like formal actions, but just so we're going through the process. Because there may be people who would like to publicly comment in relation to this as well, and I would like to give them the opportunity to do that.
Got you. So Matt brought up a really good point that we, as the task force, we're not required to follow some of the guidelines along the way, but we will be starting with this meeting. So at 4:04, we'll start recording and we'll call the meeting to order. I will ask if there are additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda.
And in this case, I would argue it's basically anybody who's participated with the Wayfinding Signage Task Force if they would like to see things added to this.
All right. And hearing none, since they haven't seen the presentation yet, we will move to item number 3. And I'm going to suggest that we flip 3 and 4, Matt. Because again, I want to go through the presentation. I want this to be in task force mode where we are inputting as we go, because I have some blanks to fill in as we go through this presentation.
So my recommendation would be to host 2 public comment periods. This one has nothing to do with anything other than this organization of people exists, and if people would like to comment about that, they absolutely can, and they have 3 minutes to do so. Once that agenda item is stricken off, you can begin your presentation, and people are more than welcome to comment during that as well.
Got it. So would anyone like to speak under item number 3? Then we will move into item number 4, new business. And can I start, Matt?
All right, do you want me to jump in, or do you just want to start up?
Yeah, you can jump in as you need to, Matt.
So the only thing that I wanted to touch on before we start is why we're even publicly posting Wayfinding Signage committee stuff in the first place. And so I was going to give a brief background. Is this the appropriate spot, Jesse, or you want me to wait?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, and I'll keep it brief because I know we got enough business to discuss between the two. But at the training with the BOT that Sam Light held, the CIRSA lawyer, I had some reservations, and Jesse shared some reservations with me regarding publicly posting meetings related to this group. From what I understand, it's not called a committee. It's not called a subcommittee, and in the resolution, it is specifically called a task force. And so we were operating under the guidelines that it's not something you publicly post. There's no public business being discussed. But after Sam's training, I think there was too much gray starting to come up for me to feel comfortable with just continuing in the way we were operating previously. And so solely to cover bases, because I still think we're in a gray area on whether or not this is even necessary in the first place, but I don't even care anymore, is I just want to cover the bases, is publicly post this meeting for the Wayfinding Signage Task Force 24 hours in advance, so it's not in violation of open meeting law, and make it open to the public and posted for the public so they can access it should they desire to public comment. And by doing this, I think that protects us going forward from having any issues where the public would say they weren't allowed to comment or they weren't allowed to be involved. And so going from here on out, Wayfinding Signage Task Force will will be posting their agendas in advance of the meetings. It's still, and I invite everybody to look this up on their own if you're a policy dork like me, like I know Zach is. I know Zach's a dork over there. If you want to find out why or find out what the differences are between a committee and a task force. It turns out it's not something you could just like Google real quick and understand easily. And so it's kind of a fun research project. I imagine someone might be interested in doing in the future, but that is why we are posting publicly this particular group.
Thank you, Matt. So I'm going to be looking at what I'm presenting, and Matt, if you'll do a favor and let me know if someone wants to speak or has input as I'm going through. But I'm gonna do a little walk down memory lane and talk about how we got here, and fill in some blanks that I have for the final presentation as we go through. So if everyone can see my cursor here, top left of the screen. We originally sort of started with, I brought two ideas to the table of things that I thought might look nice in Green Mountain Falls and be cohesive with the existing signage. From that, we sort of decided that we wanted to, that we like this tower design, that we wanted to engrave an animal at the top of each one of these towers, instead of having lettering here, which is poorly seen anyway, and that we wanted to take a look at muting these colors so that they were friendlier to the Green Mountain Falls environment, which sort of brings us over to the next step. These are mock-ups from the designer. So this is more of a muted, no, we looked at scalloped edges here, which we're still working on having a good option for those, but they tend to really, they start to limit what you can do with your lettering. And so I'll see in the final design phase how that works out. So these are design items that we've added so far. So back from the designer, then we start to get some muted colors here that we'd like to use, some symbols of animals, which brings us to where we ended our last meeting, sort of with this is where we were landing at that time. One thing that I think we may have done it, we rambled off a bunch of animals, but I do need to list 12 here. And obviously we have the butterfly. Anybody jump in?
Manatee.
A Green Mountain Falls animal.
Oh, well, you just said animal, and I love manatees, so I was throwing it out there.
Deer, hummingbird,
Cougar.
a bear,
Turkeys.
Have turkeys there?
I've seen turkeys around here.
I know we have some turkeys there for sure, but
Fox and a raccoon.
Mountain lion.
Sure.
Hearing Clay talk reminded me of gophers.
chipmunk,
Mice.
Elk.
geese.
Moose.
oh, we have to have geese, yes.
Yeah, we've
Yes.
got to have geese.
Really?
The evil geese.
Yes, that's where I think of them.
Right. Does anyone here see anything that needs to be eliminated or replaced?
Oh, I don't see your screen, Jesse. Where you're typing in the animals.
Oh.
Oh,
So anyone is seeing my screen anymore?
Oh,
Now,
oh, I'm seeing it still.
It's frozen
Well,
at the
no.
original view. It's
Yeah,
frozen
I-
at the original view.
yeah, I see it with the signs, but you were typing, so I didn't know if we were going to see that too.
Hope so. Or this
All right, I
one.
just killed your sharing. Try it again, Jesse.
There they are.
There it is.
Okay.
I don't see butterflies as an animal. I see them as an insect, per se. I mean, they're pretty. They're easy to do, but How many do we have to have?
We probably need 10 to 12. So we have 12 here.
Okay.
Sasquatch.
Jackalope,
That,
I think that's already taken.
a jackalope? Dang
No,
it.
the Sasquatch is along Hondo, so that would be confusing.
Yes.
I'm going to move on. Then, so at our last meeting, we talked about creating a legend where colors specifically meant different things. So for trails and recreation, we picked brown, and it would relate to trails, parks, pool, tennis court, lake. Anybody want to add anything to that? And things will get thought of, and we'll continue to add. Blue came out as parking, orange as the business district, town related, black for town related items such as the town hall and restrooms, and then green, which is public safety things. I really couldn't think of too many of those except for maybe evacuation routes and street names. So this is a legend that I really doubt that we will use anything except for policy for this legend. Any comments on that before I just move on?
I guess I'm just kind of curious, would people want, like, does the town hall want people to go into the town hall? Or why is town hall on these towers? I guess that would be the question.
So this is a legend, Judith.
Yes.
That says if we wanted to know where town hall was and they asked for a sign, it would be black. But I think that people, might want to know where town hall is.
Okay.
I would agree. My only problem is that you'll have two signs because, since the fire station is now right behind town hall.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that they should know where, the fire station is, so it's not always manned if there was an emergency. So I don't know.
I'm just going to put a note here to add fire station to this legend. And then when we're looking at each individual tower, that's when we decide sort of which placards go on each tower.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So from here, and these are not from the designer, these are from me today. So they're not as pretty as I would like them to be, but for discussion, this is what our placards start to look like based on this design. And then again, each individual tower is going to have different placards with different arrows going in different directions, and it's going to be a little bit of work. But and I really don't like this logo on this gazebo park thing. It doesn't look very attractive. But anyway, based on the direction that we've been going, that's what we sort of start to look like. And then if we look at it, hopefully I don't lose you guys again. And that's not going to work. So I will have from the designer for our presentation at BOT, some of our placards on these posts so that it really starts to look like our work product.
Thank you so much for doing this, Jesse, with your team and all of us.
So one thing that we didn't talk about, but I thought about since our last meeting, was we talked about doing some signage at the entrance to each neighborhood and really making sure that we got the point across that you're entering a neighborhood. Yeah. So then I toyed with the idea of, instead of this being a 12 by 12 placard, that it would be a 12 by 24. And so it would stack a little bit like this, and when I lay it over, onto one of our towers, it seems to work. So before I just apply that concept, I wanted to get your feedback. And then I just started toying with, what would that actually say? Because I know that this is important to a lot of people.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Are the colors of these signs the intended colors you were thinking of?
I think the designer will have a better palette. So I don't think I quite hit the mark with these, but I think we're getting close.
For the neighborhood and pedestrian parking, residential traffic only, those signs, the first thought that pops into my head, and I don't know how often this will be an issue, is how visible will they be in winter?
I think you're right. I think the color of blue is definitely too light. Here, it's darker here.
Yeah.
Kind
of small potatoes, but it just sort of popped into my head.
They are, and I'll go back to, and I think this is a real conversation because here with the more vibrant colors, things are more visible. So we are going to lose some visibility by going to the muted colors, which is why I really wanted to go with the larger placards for things that people should be able to see if they're in their vehicle, which is really only, in my mind, these are the most important ones.
Definitely.
Hey, Jesse, you were at the last BOT meeting, right, with the parking, and they said that they were going to coordinate with this group as far as signage also. Did that ever happen? I mean, did they give input as far as what, because I thought they were sort of going to be partnering with us as far as what those would look like too, so that we don't have duplications on residential and neighborhood and those kind of parking signs.
You're exactly right. I have a call with him tomorrow. I can't remember his name, but the guy that spoke from the vendor. And I'm happy to coordinate with them. I kind of think that from my perspective, it'd be nice to have this get adopted and then apply whatever the town adopts to whatever their project is.
I agree.
Rather than them leading us, I want this group to
Yeah.
Because remember, it's not decided yet that the town will go with that vendor or any vendor until, I mean, it's not decided yet, so.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up is just so that there's not duplications, because I think that was the biggest problem, was that they would have signs, we would have signs, and then there would be we'd have the sign pollution again, so.
Right. No,
Well, I think
and I had an initial call with him about a variety of things. I'm going to work with him on wayfinding signage, but then contractually I have things to do with the Joyland parking lot and the Court Smith parking lot. If that all goes through, and in my mind, that's still, an if. And so we'll keep pushing through. I've really been pushing, and Matt has helped a lot just to make sure that we can get on the BOT agenda with this presentation in time for them to see it and realize that it's going to have an impact towards some of the issues that we were seeing last year.
Do you know that if we can have this presentation before they continue any discussion on the vendor, on the contractual agreement with this parking arrangement?
I don't know that I'll let Matt answer.
I was gonna say, I know the guy who puts the agenda together, and I think I could probably put in a word. It's me. So yeah, I definitely think that we could put that before. It's
yeah,
totally.
I mean, it seems like it would be relevant to the discussion, and it's very, I hope that the board would see that this is a managed parking attempt and plan, not a paid parking, but a managed parking.
Certainly.
As we're calling it. So that would be great, Matt. Thank you.
As I'm understanding.
As well. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I jumped on the call a little bit late. I'm at work right now. But yes, I am definitely in support of getting this presentation and, having representatives from this group be able to talk about the signage plan that you've already put together. It looks great. And I think it should be put on the agenda prior to the discussion about the managed parking. So if there's anything that I can do to help facilitate that, I think having that discussion as a good background for any future discussions about parking would be very, very helpful for the rest of the board.
Great, thank you, Deanne.
So Jesse,
Yes.
I have about the signs with the, the neighborhood or pedestrian parking only. Maybe it's neighborhood residential parking only. Or traffic only. I like all three choices. I just want it to be extremely clear. But I think maybe that color, could we do it a muted red and put it on top of those placards? You know what I mean? Above, say, the trail, or in the middle, say it's going to a trail and it's in the middle. I just feel like it needs to be a color that catches their eye. It's like the white, no parking with the green around it does not catch their eye presently in our neighborhood. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I was thinking blue and parking, but we're really talking about traffic and what do you guys think about that? Nancy, Judith?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine without seeing it on the tower, because I wouldn't want for the other placards to be moved so far down. So I guess I'm having a hard time imagining it. But I hear what you're saying, Liz, about like choosing a color that might stand out and be different than any of the others, but still muted. I don't know what's possible in that way.
I think a darker color of the blue would be probably more, and then if the white would really pop out on it, if you have a darker blue. I'm just afraid if it's a reddish color, people are just, that to me is just like danger, warning, stop. That to me is just a very warning type of a color. But yeah, we definitely want to have it stand out. And Jesse's just using some of these sort of more muted color, muted blue. But I think if you have a more vibrant blue on that, it'd probably work a little bit better. As far as placement on the tower itself, probably most of the people that you're going to want to attract to see those signs are going to be in their cars. So you're going to have something that is visible from, the eye while you're driving. So I think if you have them too far up, they're not going to probably able to see them. Does that make sense too on that piece?
Yeah, how tall are these towers going to be?
Yeah.
So they will likely be 9 feet tall.
So if you're saying that these signs would be 12 by 24, right? So that's 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so probably eye level from the car would mean moving, in this example, moving it to the middle.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And I think where appropriate, it would be nice to have a street name at the top. That, this signage about residential traffic only, and then other things below it. And I think those, if we start to standardize how our neighborhood entrances look, it sounds nice to me.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, Nancy, about the red, but that's exactly what I want them to do, is stop and think about it, because that's appears to be our biggest complaint in our town. I'm not saying it has to be muted red, but I think it definitely has to be not pleasing so much to the eye, but something that attracts the eye.
It'd be cool, Jesse, if you could put something on the presentation with a muted red, just so we can see it. Because if it's muted, it might not stand out like you're saying, Nancy, like warning, danger, but it might really catch the eye in a different way than these other colors.
Okay, so I made a note.
I think I might have a red that could work with this. If I could share my screen real quick, I have CDOT signage policy up right now that I could reference.
Sure.
Can you guys see what I'm looking at?
Uh-huh.
See these signs here? Interestingly enough, these 3 signs are called Trailblazer Signage. And that's the color they use to direct you from the interstate. It might be not the exact color, but it's a little not emergency red, but still red paint.
Yeah, I think something like that would be appropriate.
And it's in line with CDOT signage work from the state level, so we wouldn't be that far off from what they've done.
Hold on, Matt, don't move.
Not moving.
Okay, you can move now.
Okay, great, thanks. Cool. Am I good to stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
I realize that there'll be all kinds of opinions about what the wording should be on that neighborhood signing. I'll just put out that I like that third wording best: neighborhood and pedestrian traffic only.
Yeah, and I just sort of threw out some ideas, so
Yeah.
I'm very welcome to hearing that. Am I sharing my screen again?
No.
No.
You're sharing you. Oh,
Sorry.
nope. Now it's Judith.
And this is Diani. I just had one comment to make. I mean, there are so many signs out there right now that say don't park here, no hiker parking, and they don't do anything. I think one of the suggestions had been to make a recommendation of where people could park. So I don't know if there's a short and easy graphic way to show that along with the notification that there's no, that it's resident parking only. But I think having something that's, positive, telling them where to go, the hiker parking is back on the main road kind of a thing would be helpful.
Yes, and so I think I can move down here to the map then to start to talk about, to address that point. So before I move away from this, from this language, if you all have a favorite here, if you all have a differing opinion or some other verbiage, shoot it to me in an email and I'll just include it in the presentation.
Sounds
and
good.
I've got Matt's color here, and I've made a note to look at this with muted red. Then Matt just provided a darker blue or blue with black buttering. We could see how those look, how to get people's attention. So so then as Diani was just saying, when we start to put this signage plan onto a map, we looked at 8 locations, I believe, at our last meeting, and I sort of added 2 more. I added one down here, all the way where El Paso Avenue meets Ute Pass Avenue, so that we can let people know to continue walking if you're going to Mountain Road Corner or up to HB Wallace to do your hike, or if you're coming into town, you start to see, here's a breadcrumb. So Diani, as an example, this sign would show where the next hiker parking area is. I don't know if it's right here or not, I can't remember, but there would be a parking with an arrow that would sort of indicate which way to go. And sort of the same as we get to this tower, showing that there's parking available over here. Same with this one. So we really start to fill these towers up with placards showing people which way to go. So this entrance to Hotel Street, I didn't really think we needed one here because we've got one here, and I don't want to have too many. But these are nice because if we hit all these locations, then we really hit every entrance into neighborhoods with the exception of this one back here. And so we may want to add another sign there.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
clearly marking where Dewey is, I think, is really important. And you might need another one down Belvedere even, pointing up to, or would that be Grand Avenue to get to Dewey?
No, isn't that Olathe and Catamount or Grandview, I mean?
so remember that one thing that we talked about to help it, because we did talk about there's an issue with a hiker getting from this sign up to Mount Dewey, was
Yeah.
that we wanted to increase the number. I have it over here on existing signage, was to increase the number of hiking trail tags to the trailhead, because I mean, hell, I get lost.
Mhm.
And I still might get lost if my neighbors didn't take me hiking.
Thank God for them boys.
True story. So, any thoughts here that you want me to add to the presentation? So in each one of these blue tagged items, I'm envisioning a tower.
So, this would be probably too many towers, but it would also be, nice per se. I mean, because you have the one at Olathe and you pass, which goes up to Dewey. And there is parking right there, but maybe a sign on Ann Street, or, that just, and I'm just using that as a reference because I know that area, as a reference to put that sign that says residential parking only. Because right now on Olathe, there is going to be parking, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of enter a neighborhood. So you couldn't put that
No, it would go here, Liz.
right there. Well, that's, okay, so, well, they have cleared the Olathe and there's parking there. My concern is that if that parking's full and there's not a sign that says neighborhood only parking, past that parking, is that then they end up, like they do in front of our houses.
Mhm. So you're talking about having one more right here.
Yes. Because like right there where you are, you have your cursor is where that, they've cleared all the rock and they have parking there now, which I'm really thrilled about.
It
I've
looks,
only, carried on about it for who knows how long.
so you're talking about maybe even moving this one from here to here.
Yeah, or even, yeah, I guess so. I think that maybe we should, because there is parking there, and if you don't delineate that past that parking that is available to them, that there is no other available parking, that they will look until they just give up and park somewhere.
Right. And so so there's a big question mark that really that there's a question mark, because if they do paid parking and we have that vendor come in, then that vendor would put in park here signage in those in the actual parking lots. If we don't move to paid parking, then we need to take that on in this committee. But it's easy because we're creating the rules now, and then we just have to try to follow them.
Right.
Johnny, that would really answer what you brought up, because I know this has been something that we've been talking about for a long time, like really designating park here, public parking here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Zach, do you have your ears on?
Yes, I'm taking notes. Do we want to go ahead and move that location?
Yeah, if you would just change that.
Yeah,
location,
not a problem.
that would be great. And thanks for helping us with this map.
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, how about the people that are going up Belvedere? They go Thomas They come out through Thomas. They either come out at Mountain Avenue or Boulder Street. And they're like, where do I go now? Does that make sense? Because you come off that trail, and they're like, how do I get back to the gazebo?
I think that's an excellent point. So where would we put towers then for that?
I would say, like I said, either Mountain Avenue, where you come off at the Thomas, or Boulder Street, just so that they know, you could have like the little gazebo and show the way, a picture of that. Does that make sense, Judith?
Yeah, it does.
Because if you're at the parking lot, you're brand new, and the ambassadors tell you, go up Hondo or go down, well, I guess it'd be, Hondo or Belvedere to get to Thomas. You're going all the way across the mountain, coming out at a different spot that you went in at, and having no idea how to get back down to the gazebo where you parked. So I think some kind of, there are some signs there now, but if we're going to do some of this, the towers, it'd be really nice to have those consistent in those areas.
And hopefully some of this other signage will come down.
Yes.
Once we get this formalized and in place. I wonder, Jesse, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, how many more are we going to suggest? But I also want to say that it seems likely that we'll start with a certain amount and see how that goes, and then hopefully be able to add as we see necessary.
And that's why we picked, that was one of the reasons that we like the tower signage, is because they're easy to add to and change. And I do like the idea. I think that's an excellent point that Nancy brought up. And maybe I was kind of hopeful that we would keep the towers out of the actual neighborhoods, but maybe we go to, maybe we go to a mini tower, or something else in the neighborhoods. But I think, I don't know that it's vital for this presentation, but tell me. It's a great point, actually. And Nancy, if you will star those, if you can get that information to Zach, because you're talking about the shady side of the mountain and I don't go over there. Stay on the sunny side. So I'm not sure exactly where you're telling me.
Of course, I'll send something to Zach. No worries.
The same recommendation might be made for going the opposite direction. So if they're going up Boulder Street, taking Thomas across the falls, and they come down Catamount, then they know where to go. If there's no signage up there by the falls, at the base of Catamount.
And because the problems are, I don't know if we want to make an exception, because the problems are exceptional on, is it Boulder? That maybe even that's a little bit stronger language than, because that's really not even a street. That's, in my mind, that's, I don't know.
Well, per Virgil, it is a public road, yes, but it is a very difficult road that once you commit to go up there, it's hard to turn around without using someone's private property. So, I think Boulder would definitely be an area to concentrate on, Boulder Street.
So if you all will email me what you think that, again, we want to stay friendly, but that is
You got anybody else getting pretty bad feedback from somebody?
Yeah, someone's got a hot
Yeah,
mic.
there's definitely some dropout.
Sounds good all of a sudden. I don't know what changed.
So, I know what you're saying about not putting signage in the neighborhoods. I would find the towers least obtrusive than, say, a metal sign that we already have saying no hiker parking, which, from here, or, all those signs. I don't know, I would feel like it would be a huge step in the right direction if there was signage on Boulder at the intersection of Boulder and Park there that said residential pedestrian parking only and Trailhead, or I think I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way to start at the beginning and not at the end, which is how I see
Says
the other proposal.
homeowner traffic only on that road.
Yeah.
Like Virgil pointed out in an earlier meeting, that these signs aren't enforceable by law because we're not doing them to CDOT standards. We don't want to because it would be ugly. These are our opinions and suggestions to people who don't know any better. But I think, something like homeowner vehicles only, I mean, we could put that on Boulder. I'm terrible with verbiage today, so I'm happy to have you all email me your suggestion on that, because I think it's very important to some residents there who spoke to us at a couple of PRT meetings, and we know it's a hot spot, and that's part of our job is to resolve it if we can.
Hey, Jesse, this is Yanni. So I just had one quick question, and I apologize if you mentioned this at the beginning before I got on the call, but is there a cost projection for each of the towers? I know the BOTs will ask that in relation to our budget.
Yes, there is. And I can share that. These are about $1,750 a piece. That is installed, and the individual little placards, if we go to the sign company, cost about $20 each to produce. That $1,750 number includes all of the placards that we would need going in, and the $20 cost is to estimate replacements on those. We did meet with Dusty, who gave our group a demonstration or a discussion about the abilities of the town sign making machine. And while we were hopeful that would be a solution to making these placards, at least our group thought that the the capabilities color-wise and print-wise were not cohesive with the design look that we were going for. They just weren't aesthetically pleasing. So I think we're hopeful that that we can replace $20 signs as necessary on these towers. So that Diani sort of is the answer to your question. One thing I haven't talked about in this group yet, and we'll get there later in the meeting, but we have a $30,000 budget for the project. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this discussion. We're almost there. So in fact, this is the last of this page. So before I get off this page, any other comments? Anything
Yes.
you want on your wish list?
I'd like to make a comment that this will probably mean some education of people in the neighborhoods. I mean, up there at Boulder Street, it's almost like they think more is better. But I'm hoping that we really are able to take down signs and concentrate and make it so that less is more. Less is more concentrated, that it's more detailed, and that people will really come to respect this signage and take down these other signs, whether they are personally made or even put up by the town, that are repetitive.
So Judith, I'll say that in our when we started back on the parking task force, sign pollution was one of the first things that was identified.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the reasons that this group was formed. And it's my understanding that the intent is to get rid of any unauthorized signage once these go up.
Mhm.
If they're on homeowners' properties, we don't have the right to do that. But if they're on public property, and many of them are,
Yeah.
and that would really be up to town staff and the marshal. That's not our group, but we can certainly remind them that's one of our objectives, to remove unapproved signage, get rid of signage pollution.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. 2 L's.
Gotcha. Oh, embarrassing! You can't even watch me spell. Okay. Any other comments here? Then I'm going to jump to the next part of our task. So, and I'm trying to repeat some of these things for people who weren't in the first meetings, which is one of the reasons that we sort of adopted this look was we wanted to work with existing signage. So a very good volunteer, Nancy and Todd Dixon, went out and took some great photos and did condition reports on the existing signage. And so it won't take us too long, but I want to go through these and basically come up with some recommendations. And Matt, I'm going to start moving and you just pipe in if someone is trying to get my attention.
Will do.
Okay, so this is the downtown trailhead. It was noted that it was in poor condition and it needed painting. In the next meeting of PRT, we are going to recommend moving this trailhead down to the Welcome Center at the pool. But whether it's moved or not, it does need to have some painting done. And I think that town staff could do that. What town staff could not do would be to replace this insert, which we have on both sides. So cost to paint it and to replace those inserts is $300 if we want to make that recommendation. What do you guys think? Hearing no objections, we will make that right. Because I'm
trying.
Yeah. All right.
$300 is a lot less than buying a whole new sign.
Absolutely. The sign company that I'm working with is really being nice to us. But I have a connection to him for years doing a lot of green box work, and so it's paying off on this one. So we have this sign at the playground. I think Nancy noted some painting and staining may need to be done. This doesn't really fit into anything that we're doing in the rest of town. So I don't know, I think it's a question maybe to the mayor if this is going to stay up.
Is this the lake project that's there?
But it's the lake project. And so I don't know what the status of that is. And if we're still trying to educate on it, then we should either build the frame of the sign to match the sign, or we should shrink the sign to match into the frame that's there. And maybe that's just an observation I'm making, but
I think it's pollution personally. I mean, because if we're going to, if the lake project does occur, that's great. But maybe, it's a signage that says, if they could go as simple as to put something up that says not that big and that says we have a lake project plan. If you'd like to see it, come to town hall. I think that's kind of that stuff that should be at town hall, not right there, because it doesn't really say that it's that it's happening.
it also suggests on there to give donations. And, you know, it might be just a question to the board or to the town, has there been any donations that come in from that? I kind of doubt it, because it looks almost like it's past, like it's not even happening.
Yeah, I mean, what was that put up 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask the board and let them sort of give us direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe parts of that project are happening in small pieces. It's not a bad thing to advertise our vision, but it is large.
Yeah.
So moving on to the gazebo sign, the etched background is badly worn. There's some rotting on the trim, and it is cluttered with other signage. You know, decluttering is one of our goals. We all know that. And I don't know, these just sort of look like people came along over the years and put whatever's there. But I think maybe my goal is to get this approved. And then the next step is to go around and look and see, okay, what of these signs should we be making? You know, we do need to say that there's bears. We do need to say that you can't do fireworks. We do need to say that, you know, there are some things, and how do we display them and where do we display them are questions that we will figure out. I don't think that we have to figure them out for this. I think we're going to get a note from the Board of Trustees whether we're on track or not, and where to make adjustments and where to keep moving forward. But the cost to completely repair this sign is $750.
And isn't that like a historic sign? It's about the history of the lake.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that has to stay, in my opinion, just because the lake has been there since the 1800s that we know of.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an important sign, and you know, it's like $1,200 to completely replace it, or $750 to repair it. And when we get to the end of our wish list, maybe that's a deciding factor, you know, because it wouldn't be terrible to replace it. It's not, you know, it is almost double the money. So, you know, this money that we're using was a grant, and so it's a one-time opportunity to use it, I believe, and we want to maximize it. So if we come back to the end and have left money on the table, I think that's one to consider.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 4 is the Lake Street sign. It's sort of mixed. It looks like a couple of the placards were replaced and a couple weren't. So to bring it all together and make it right, I think we had like a $400 cost on that. I didn't write that one down, but I'm gonna stand by that one. And that's a pretty important little spot. And I think we all agree that it needs to be redone. Number 5 is actually in good shape. I think, you know, as we wrap this up, some months down the line, hopefully, we put together a maintenance plan that can be used going forward, and make sure that we're checking on these and that we're touching up paint as necessary to keep these in good condition. So I'm going to make no recommendation on number 5. On number 6, it seems like the condition of this one actually appears to be pretty bad because of this area of rot. Nancy, do you know if that was actual rot or just real bad paint blistering?
Yeah, that's a great question. I took that picture from our car. So didn't really get out and do a real visual on it. That's the one where the trees really need to be trimmed also.
Yes, yes. So I'm gonna put here tree trimming. And that'll be, I assume that'll be a request of town staff, but we're not gonna get involved with that. We're just gonna put it out there into the universe. Matt?
I can definitely pass it along to the public works guys.
Thank you. And the cost to replace the clipboard on this and completely repair is $1,000 for complete replacement. And it seems like based on the condition that it's in, $750 to repair it or $1,000 to replace it. They take this panel out and either make the repair or they sandblast out the complete new sign. But my thought here is we go.
I got a lot of feedback. It's $1,000 to fix it, to replace it. Okay.
Jay, I think that's your mic that might be feeding back since you're the only one unmuted.
All right, so our recommendation is to replace. Any thumbs down on that? I'm looking this time. Okay. I'm gonna keep moving this thing. East side of the lake, poor condition, cluttered with under signage. We've talked about all that. This sign also is not really, all of these sort of have an etched background. This one is different. So I was sort of interested in bringing it to the same level of design as these others. So that's $1,000 to replace this one also.
Quick question, Jesse.
Yes.
Just seeing that, it pops into my head right away that would this be a spot that perhaps the Hiker 5 could find a home as well?
Absolutely.
Or is that a little too much clutter? I just think if it's more rules, it kind of ties in, but.
No, I think that a full replacement on this sign, and that means we can revamp it. It can say the same thing, or it can be brought to current information. And I think obviously we'd want to do that. I get so frustrated that I can't ride my horse through there, but I'm going to leave it on the sign. So what do you guys think? Should we bring that back? Should we bring that one up to standard 2 and revise the language?
I think it's like shoot for the ideal and then see what happens, because in this case, this might be like a stage 2 of the signage. I think the towers are stage 1. And
Well, and at this point, we're still within budget.
oh, great. Go
Unless,
for it.
unless I can't do math, and that's possible. Our entrance sign is in good condition, but does need to be repainted. So they gave me a $300 quote on that. Seems like a no-brainer. And that's actually recoloring all of the lettering. And we can touch up frames as a work day. I had my son and John Ives helped repaint this one last year, and it's in good shape. Thank you, boys. And we will put in a request for tree trimming. I think that on item 10 is easy to ask that we just touch up the paint here for Public Works. Since we have that ranch red paint in the maintenance yard.
Which sign was that for? 10 and 11, you said?
For 10.
10. Okay. Just making notes.
Gotcha. And then, sign
Sorry,
number
what was
11.
10 called again? You scroll down, if you could scroll. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So then the swimming pool sign is pretty interesting sign. It seems like someone hand painted that unfortunately onto a piece of plywood that is not going to last much longer. We talked about it many different ways to replace this sign and not lose the character. And he assured me figure out what we want done, and he will do it for $1,000. There is a thought that as the pool park is becoming the virtual trailhead or Dick Bratton Welcome Center or Green Mountain Falls Welcome Center, that maybe this sign gets updated with that information too. So for this presentation, I'm just going to say that we replace and update language. And this is one I sort of have a feeling like everybody loves the sign and that we shouldn't change it. We should just fix it. But I'm not hearing that, so I'm just going to keep going. Our old town hall sign. What do we do here?
I think
that sign is in really, really bad shape. I mean, you can look down at the bottom. One of the legs is totally rotted out. The other one is rotting out. The letters you can't see. It does have history on it, which is really cool. But should it stay in that spot? Or what? I don't know. Maybe there could be some other kind of tribute that could be for the old town hall, or do we need a tribute for the old town hall? I don't know. I'm not the historian buff of Green Mountain Falls, so.
so I'm going to weigh in on that, and I'm going to say that the sign stays, not like that, of course. We replace it, and maybe it has a picture of the old town hall because it was the school room at one point, if my history serves me right, from the UPass history little booklet that I put away out in the man room just the other day. So, I mean, it does have some. It is a historic spot and one of the first places built, along with Clay's house. I understand, but it was one of the first places built. So, I think, as part of the signage that we do some history and we leave that as a historical marker. Maybe at some point we end up with a walking history, that you can pull up on your phone, kind of like they do with the Civil War stuff back east. So, because I'm not even sure the old schoolhouse up on the hill is still standing up off Hondo. Does anybody know?
I do not know the answer to that.
It's still standing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would be great if we could put a historical marker there too, I mean, I think those things are all kind of important.
I'm going to say possibly reorient.
Yeah.
By the way, Rebecca has her hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in and agree with Liz on this. It hurts my heart to think of that sign being gone. For all of us that were here when the town hall burnt down, I mean, I think it needs to stay and just look better.
So they did tell me that they could do a full replacement on this sign, do it just the way that it was done originally, for $1,000. It's a smaller sign, but the entire frame needs to be replaced. And I agree. I think it's I remember the old town hall too, and it's nice to have something there. So that brings us to the restroom. And I I think we basically remove and replace these with our style signs.
Mhm.
Well, are they going to be opened?
Well, now, Judith, that's a question for another committee. Let's not go with that.
Yes, it is.
We sure hope so. You know, I think this is an example of a public nuisance. Sign pollution doesn't need to be there. But that's not really for us. That's for town staff to look at when they are looking at code enforcement and rewriting municipal code. I think all of these ideas feed into that. So, so here I asked a question: are there any other areas in town where there is signage needed, or there's signage that needs to be looked at? I can't remember what the bulletin board at the post office looks like. I don't know who owns it, but it seems like it's an opportunity for us to, I don't know, you all weigh in.
Yeah, I think it has so much more potential to be communicative to the townspeople than it is right now.
Would someone send me a photo?
Yeah, I'll send you a photo. I'll go down there and take one.
Okay, and just let me know the condition that it's in, and based on our other sign quotes, I can at least say, you know, repair, replace, or if it needs a rework, then we'll figure that out too.
It's very difficult to read anything in there because it's behind the table that people would look at mail at.
Oh, I'm talking about the one outside.
Oh, outside.
Mhm. The outside one.
Oh,
Is the outside one owned by the post office?
I don't know. We'd have to find out, but I know it's highly
Yeah.
visible. So I think that I know who owns the post office. So if we need to make a change there, we probably could. If we're making an improvement,
What
I don't know how that would work, but basically I was trying to think of anywhere else there was any kind of sign pollution, and that was the only place I could think of. But you all know the town just as well, if it's not better.
Well, that bulletin board's been used for years for like kids to post, I'll clean your yard, or even adults looking for work or looking to sell something, lost animals. I mean, I don't know who owns it. I mean, it would be nice if there was trail information on it.
So I think maybe the first step, we determine who owns this thing, and then maybe come back and see what we can actually put onto it. Yeah, because I would love to put trail stuff on it, but if the post office owns it and they say we can't, then it's kind of moot.
Okay. So Judith, if you'll still send me that photo and the condition, then we can just note it here.
I'll also check with the post office with Wendy to see if she knows who owns it.
Okay, there we go. And so I just didn't know where to put this, and we've already talked about it, was to increase the number of hiking trail tags between town and the actual trailheads. And it just reminds me that I keep coming up with virtual trailhead just does not seem right to go from a actual physical place to a physical place. So Welcome Center is sounding better to me. We'll talk about that in Parks, Recs, and Trails. If those people are still going to meet with me today, because we've been going at this one for a long time. Sorry, guys. I'm going to estimate a $1,500 cost there. That is probably more than, it'll get the job done and probably keep us from going over budget somewhere else. And everyone understands what I'm talking about when I say this here, right? So the small markers with the blue dot that say Mount Dewey, follow me, there's not enough breadcrumbs. And so many people agreed with that at one of the previous meetings. So I'm going to leave it there and figure out a way to get that in the presentation. And I'll ask for questions and comments.
Jesse, did you talk to Maddie about, I think she took pictures of trailheads and signage and all that stuff last year. Did you ever talk to her about that?
I did not.
Okay.
I guess it's, since you asked that question, I know the ones at Mount Dewey and HB Wallace are new. What other trailheads do we have?
Well, we have the Catamount and the Thomas Trail, which don't.
That doesn't have like a town sign on it. It just has sort of like a city sign that says when it was built and who it was built by, and that just has a bunch of people put stickers.
Yep.
All over it. We need to go up there with a big can of Goo Gone and take all those stickers off, because that's sort of, it's disrespectful to do that also. But there's not like one of those wooden trailhead signs up there.
So, I guess that's the next step, or maybe Wayfinding Signage 2.0, or something that gets passed to the Parks, Recs, and Trails Committee for a further grant request next year, depending on where we're at on budget. I think that we probably tapped our budget out with all of these. I need to do the math, which I rushed through in my mind and don't want to promise that we're good. But if there's an opportunity, this is definitely, I think, our next thing to look at.
So I have a really quick question, and I know we were going really long, but what about the Hummingbird Cottage sign that used to be at the bottom of by the gate on, because that was the very first, there was history on that also, but that's gone now. Does anyone know what happened to that sign? And it was like a town sign that had the wood, but it also was sort of like the town hall sign where it had the history of who built the place, when they built it. And it was right down at the bottom of where Belvedere ends, and you go up the access road to get to Catamount.
So
Rebecca,
it was
do you
right
know
there
what?
by the gate.
Yeah, Rebecca, do you know what happened to that?
I do not, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it used to be there years ago, or I don't know how long ago, but it was just about the Hummingbird Cottage.
Quite a time back. I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it did used to be there.
So I think, just a random idea that came out of this meeting. I know Mr. Cassie has asked me as his employee to have an architect put together a list of historical homes in town, and it might be cool to take that on in the future and have some signs made for homes that wanted them, so that you could enjoy more history as you're on your way up to the trails. Thanks for volunteering for that, Liz.
I see that down there, Jesse. That's that'll be a voluntold child.
Yes.
Oh, no.
All right, guys. Anything else before we? I have to ask if there are any other questions from you guys. Does anyone have any reports? I know that you've all reported to me so much on this project, and I appreciate it. Definitely been a group effort, so thank you. And
So you got no correspondence, although Rebecca does have something in the chat. Claudia Ely would be good for historic homes. Just throwing that out there.
That's perfect. You just made Liz's day. And of course, that's right, that Claudia would be the expert.
Yep.
All right.
That would be like something you could also do, like, Manitou does their historic walks and their ghost walks and that sort of stuff. So something we could organize into our town along with other events throughout the year.
All right. With that final comment from Liz Ives, we are going to adjourn at 4:18 p.m. Thank you, everyone. And for Parks, Recs, and Trails, if you guys would entertain a 5-minute break for me, I just have to go somewhere real fast.
I too also have to go somewhere as well.
Special consideration.
Liz, can you hear me?
I heard you, Clay.
Oh, I was just trying to tell Liz that book, Green Mountain Falls, Stories of the Early Years, that was written by Claudia Ely and Marianne Davis, has lots of the old homes in town. It talks about the old families and some of the older homes. It would be a good place to start if she's looking for historical homes.
Yep. Good one. Hey, Clay, while you're on, are you in Green Mountain Falls now, or are you still back
No,
east?
I'm here.
Okay, good.
For a while.
Okay. Just a curiosity, since I haven't gotten to, we couldn't meet up. Are you a part-time resident and like back and forth East Coast or east or into Midwest somewhere?
I'm a full-time resident here. I have another home in Wisconsin. And then
Okay.
I travel quite a bit to just different areas.
Okay.
Right.
Matt is back in the saddle. Back in the saddle again.
Oh, boy.
Can't start with me. I don't know if I have a shame button at all.
I'm sure the guitar playing is good.
With me today, sorry about that.
All right. We have a quorum, so at 4:22 p.m., I'm going to call the meeting to order and let Matt do virtual roll call. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, we will go to public comment.
I didn't receive any signups, but if there's anybody interested, now is the time.
All right, moving on to consent agenda. Did everyone receive the minutes? And if so, if not, let us know. And if you approve of them, someone please make a motion. Don? Did you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Move we approve.
I second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor, aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, a lot of old business here. The good news is that we're making a lot of progress. Jay, do you want to give an update on trail maps since that's been your project, or do you want me to do it?
I'll just comment quickly. During the beginning of the meeting, I received an update from Mike Lohman, who has done a lot of the trail maps previously. Mike has been working on a revision to the trail maps that includes a set of includes the updated parking arrangements, parking locations. I have that on the map that Jesse is showing there is the original version that Mike put together. I have an update to that. I can either share that, or I can send it out to the committee members later. It just adds a couple of pieces of parking to that map. It has the same basics layout and structure. It does use the older green format, green background kind of structure. He played with that back and forth just to try to put as much data information into this as possible. I'll show that in a second, or I don't know if you, I'll show that as an alternative to this connection here, if you'd like. You want that?
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see it. Ultimately, I think we want to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees while we have their attention next week to try to get approval to get this temporary hiking map put up. So I do want to review before we do that to make sure that we have everyone's input included so that we submit something that we all agree on for that.
Sure. Yep. I think you can see the map on my screen too. You should see a map that includes 4 areas for hiker parking. Is that coming up?
Yes, we see that.
Okay, this is the alternative that Mike put together. It lists parking, he groups the areas on Maple Street and Pool Parking and off Olathe as parking A, area A. He calls the area in front of the little park with the flagpole, whose name escapes me, and the business area as area B. And he's got area C here, down towards the Wallace Reserve, and area D as Joyland. That's as follows the rough guidelines we discussed a couple weeks ago. I think this gives you a sort of a quick pointer that says, here's where you go. And by doing this, we can connect these locations to the forest trailheads, area C at Wallace, area B feeding Thomas and Kirkpatrick, and then Crystal, how that turns out. Area B, of course, can potentially feed anything through there, and area A connects onto Dewey here, or up Belvedere to Catamount, and area D will be directly adjacent to the Pittman Trail. Area area B also would feed into the Terrell access point right here. Mike's been a little ill. It took a little while for him to put this together, but I think he's got a good handle on where things can feed. We could, in principle, add connectors that say you walk along Belvedere to get to Catamount, or you walk along, you walk up Mountain Road to get to the Wallace Reserve. But those are details that we can follow up and improve over time. I want to just get the basic idea in front of people. If the parking areas are labeled by animals, the statement area A, area B, and so forth could be replaced by the animal name. That would be, you know, combinations of things we can do. And that depends on the signage committee finalizing that and getting that going forward. Mike's original original text for this had points of interest, which includes some of the historical homes and some of the trails as well. That could be something we include as a detail in a circular or a more detailed posting for the trails.
All right, so I mean, I'm happy for that. I'm happy with this. I think that you have achieved what we asked in the last meeting. Have you done any work on the back page?
I have.
Flip side of this, which would have the Hiker 5 and any other information that we want to share.
I just got this from Mike today, so I haven't updated that. We had some of that on the prior piece. What I'd want to do is connect these areas to the trails access point. Let's call this walking trail, or call this forest trailhead for these areas to distinguish them from the parking area, from the beginning of the hike from the trailheads. That would separate the business of parking from hiking up into the neighborhoods. So that piece I still have to do. I agree. I'll just say that.
Okay. I'm having a hard time, I guess. How important is it that we suggest to people where to park? It is a good suggestion if they have the map before they come to town. It probably makes no difference if they pick up the map when they get to town because they've already parked. So I'm wondering if more of that version goes on our online map, and we keep this one pretty simple. I mean, and I like the fact that the parking areas are highlighted in yellow, and you sort of makes it easy to understand where you are. And those are just my comments, thoughts. Don, Rebecca, Clay, we've missed you at the last couple of meetings. What are your thoughts here as you see this sort of?
I agree. I like the yellow. It really makes it stand out. I think it looks good to me. I don't see anything that really, in my opinion, needs to be done differently.
You know, I think there's a lot of things that we can do to improve it and build on it, but I think it's a good base.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
And I know we brought this up in the past, but I haven't seen one yet. this is like a draft. Will we have one that's a extremely high resolution that we can blow up and shrink down that's kind of universal use?
This is a high resolution image. What I've got here is a picture that Mike sent to me. He has this as a GIS file. Part of the difficulty he ran into was that this background piece had to be reconstituted from earlier Google Maps background, because normally Google Maps sends you this either as a mapping point with with advertisements and similar stuff, or as a satellite picture, which is extremely detailed and messy. But I believe this is the original here is like a 4 or 5 gig file that can be and played with.
Awesome.
And remember, Jay, that in all likelihood, this will get turned over to Pocket Pals, and they will probably do some reformatting just because that's what they do, and they will mostly use his GIS locations, so he doesn't need to necessarily perfect it before that next step. And
Yeah.
I know that Mike does not like to release an imperfect product.
Yeah, Mike was finessing this thing quite aggressively. I think you're very right that Pocket Pals probably can get access to the basic data and generate this just as quickly as Mike can, or more quickly than Mike can. They're in the business. They know the stuff. So that using this as a reference is the best way to go.
Right, and I just, on a personal note, just make sure that Mike is aware that that's our plan, because I don't want him to have his feelings hurt.
No, he's worked hard, but I highlighted this to him to say, this is we're gonna be working this thing, and he's invested lots of time in the whole deal. So I don't want him to bust himself up.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to make a motion. But Jay, if you would just talk through the list of items that are on the back of the map before I make that.
Okay. I don't know what you mean exactly by items on the back of the map. We've been talking about a variety of things. So if you can list them, that would be good. I'll keep notes if you wish.
Well, I know, and I don't know that we've totally flushed it out, or I didn't keep the notes. I know that we want the Hiker 5 rules on the back. Nancy's saying in the chat that we need the descriptions of the trails. That piece of information is going on the Welcome Center trailhead. But it would be nice to have a brief descriptor of them on the back. Is that doable, Jay?
Yep. Yeah, that would be the table that I put adjacent to that earlier proposal. Mm-hmm. We could get back to just list the trail and conditions of the trail, probably mileage and elevation gain. Conditions specifically were things that we were going to update on a routine basis.
Right. So for the purpose of this paper map, we would just have a brief description with the mileage and the change in elevation. Should there be anything else, Rebecca?
No, I don't want it to get too cluttered. I guess I'd like to look at one of our old maps and see what's on there. I don't have one available. I mean, we are kind of reinventing the wheel in a way.
We are, but we should remember that this is like an emergency map that's going to go out. We're not going to spend a fortune. We're building a base, and then we will finalize our real product throughout the course of our next meetings. But we do need to get, our goal is to have something out by the end of the month.
Great.
And I know you know that. I'm only repeating. I'm trying to, we're almost there. We have to get there.
Okay.
I would say, we could definitely email that to Jay.
Yeah. The piece that I think you were referring to was the piece that I just moved in as an Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
One could take the columns that I've not, the columns that other than the ones that I highlighted right now, I'm going to hide 2 columns. This listing would be the simplified list of items that we can follow up. Those would be the values that I would put onto a backside of the trail map. Is this the listing people would think of? I made some comments from the last meeting that I've not included or changed in this, but comment last time was make the trail list alphabetical. I'd resort this, put Bratton up top, Catamount, move down, and so forth. Is there anything else we should do with in a standard map, in a standard listing for the town, the things that we want as that emergency or near-term map that Jesse's describing?
What to do in case of an emergency? And I apologize for not knowing what's on the standard on that map that Rebecca has, but it seems like something we just want to make sure that people know to call 911 and not town hall.
Yep. There's also the comment about you are your own rescuer. Is that something we want to carry along in a standard comment, making sure people know of that? I see Rebecca's got a copy up.
I do. So what's on it is the town website or the Trails website. I don't know if we're going to have one of those. So that's one of the things that was on the front. The next part is hiker parking. We covered that. The next is trail use rules, which goes along with hiker 5, I believe. Hike at your risk. No bikes, horses, or motorized vehicles. No fires, camping, smoking, shooting. Carry water. No potable water on the trips. Dogs must be kept on a leash, Rebecca. Please clean up after your pet. Stay on trail. Do not cut switchbacks. Pack out trash and litter. Those were the big points that were on the old map.
So I think that syncs up with the hiker 5.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
We have a trail information, hiker 5, emergency, what to do in case of emergency. I think it's good to have the town website always.
I like no fires.
Yes, and I think if that becomes hiker 6 instead of hiker 5 or hiker 9, it's okay. Right, Nancy?
Is there anything else I should add to this list? I do have to update the distance. The distances that are listed in red are distances from the forest trailhead to the top of the marked trail. Those would be you would add to those from the nearest parking location so that people know that they're not going to go just a little less than a mile to go to Dewey. They've got a half a mile on road and about another 200 feet of climb to deal with.
All right. Jay, is it reasonable to think that we can have this at the next BOT meeting, or do you think we need to kick it one more time?
The BOT is next Tuesday.
Correct.
Yeah, this is no problem. That's me getting out on Saturday and doing some hiking. So this bit of updates, add these notes as a backside. So I would have the revised Mike Lohman map plus a table like this as the background, and the background would include these updates.
Okay.
I'd send that to the group on Sunday. Would that be right for folks?
A quick question, Jay, is the stuff you're sending intended to be in the BOT packet?
I think that's what Jesse is requesting. Would that be enough for the BOT?
Well, I'm not necessarily concerned about enough, but more along the lines of I post the packet on Fridays, and if you give me something by Sunday, I can't have it in the packet.
Okay. I don't think I can do that by Friday. I'm sorry for that. I didn't know what your mechanics were.
So what I can do, I could post a packet. I don't like getting in the habit of posting amended or changed packets over and over and over again, but we could do it this time where I'll post a packet on Friday. And then if you have till Sunday, you can give me whatever you want. The other consideration is I want to make sure the board has adequate time to review these things. And not to say that it's overly complex, but those extra days really do help the board a lot in making their decisions.
Yeah, Matt,
No,
when is the next BOT meeting?
5/18.
No, after that.
6/1.
What if we post the revised map first? This is the piece that's the most complex.
So Matt, would you be comfortable posting this map and the list of additions that are coming?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whatever you guys would like to put together and have sent to the board, I'm happy to get included in the packet. Packet isn't lining up.
I think it's our only way to get this done.
So then, yeah, if the goal is to have this at the 5/18 meeting, Friday is of course the ideal day, and I understand that that's less than 2 days away, so it's not necessarily ideal. So yeah, I'm okay with getting a revised packet out again on Sunday, but I do not want to post one on Monday. I really want to give them time to digest these things.
Yeah. No. What I will do is I'll just
Rebecca, just hang on the line. Apologies, Jay, for interrupting you, but Rebecca's had her hand up for a bit. Apologies. Rebecca, you're muted.
Okay, so we have one loop on this trail, which is the Thomas Trail you have listed as a loop, Jay. I'm wondering if you could also list Mount Dewey and Bratton Trail as a loop, because when we were out walking with the forest department, she mentioned that people really like loops. And so I thought maybe we could just put that loop in, if that's not too difficult.
Easy peasy, Rebecca.
Beginning it right now.
I see that.
Yeah, I'll amend that, and I don't have the mileage on that, but we can come to that pretty quickly.
I'll be happy to walk it and get it to you, dude.
It's probably too. You're lucky enough to have some free time. You've
Yes.
got a lot of mileage on me, so that would be great. I have old Strava lists, but they're not accessible.
Where do I have to begin my hike and end it?
I think the recommendation would be to do it from the parking lot. So if you were able to walk down to one of the parking areas, say Maple Street.
Yep.
And just start from there.
Will do.
All right, so I'm going to move then that we forward this map to the Board of Trustees with a list of changes that they can expect in their Sunday packet. Does that make sense, Matt?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm taking notes. Yes,
Okay.
it makes sense.
All right, he does not say no. Is there a second? Jay?
I'll second.
Thank
Yay.
you. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye. Nope.
Thank you. All
All right,
right.
we gotta get the party horns out, the trails map. You guys did such great work with this. I'm so excited to see all this moving along. Thank you guys so much.
Oh no, this is good. This is good. Matt, I will juggle this list and make it alphabetical and send that to you and everyone in the next few minutes. But I'm not going to try to do that in real time because I'll screw it up.
We understand, and we're going to make you do other things real time. So we're moving on to the virtual trailhead. Clay, I'll start with you by thanking you for putting together the original virtual trailhead. And I'm hoping that when Jay gets back, he will pull that up. We talked about a list of changes at our last meeting, and I'm not sure if Jay has worked those out yet, but they were to include, and you all help me remember this, they were to include a recommendation for diagonal parking along the tennis side of the Pool Park. It was to include relocating the underutilized bear-proof trash cans. It was to include relocating the trailhead from Lake Street. And I believe that was it. Were there other things? It scares me if you all are going to rely on my memory. But Jay, I know you're making some notes. So if there are no additions to that, then I would like to make a similar motion as we did before, which was to say that we would submit the, well, wait a minute. Let's talk about what we want to call this thing. If we're going to submit a recommendation, then I don't know. I've been struggling with calling it a virtual trailhead. Welcome Center seems agreeable. Naming it, definitely that's an opportunity. And I don't know if it's our place to make that recommendation, but we certainly could. All they can do is say no. So jump in, somebody help.
I like Welcome Center myself.
I like Welcome Center better than virtual trailhead.
You betcha.
Yeah. Well, Welcome Center is inviting and gives the message we'd want to have. If we want people to come into the town, spend a few bucks, we want to welcome them.
Well, I missed the last meeting, guys, but you're still thinking about putting it right next to El Paso or UPass Avenue, or were you going to move it over next closer to the swimming pool?
No, we liked the location that you suggested.
Okay.
It sort of maximized parking.
I wasn't sure if you decided to move it or not. Like I said, I missed the last one, so thank you.
Yes. So so our list of changes to that design, I'm going to run through them one more time because I left an important one off. So number one was to recommend diagonal parking near the tennis courts, to relocate the trash can, to relocate the trailhead from Lake Street, to brand this as the Welcome Center, and to make use of the public restrooms at the pool. Maybe all can't happen tomorrow, but many of those things can happen near immediately. So I'm going to make a motion that we forward that recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Clay's design with those modifications that we will again get to Matt by Sunday.
Can you give me that list again? I'm typing it up as you're talking it out, but I just want to make sure I have this motion down exactly.
Yes. Diagonal parking near the tennis courts.
Okay.
Relocate the bear-proof trash can.
Okay.
Relocate the trailhead from Lake Street to be as shown on the map. So we're going to provide you with a map that has, it's the same drawing that Clay did. We're just going to update it with these items marked.
Yes, I'll have that referenced in the agenda. I'm more making sure I have this motion down correctly in our minutes.
We want to brand this as the Welcome Center. We
Okay.
recommend that we use the public restrooms in the pool house rather than having porta potties.
So the motion is to make the recommendation to establish the new trailhead and then do all of those things?
That is exactly right. I mean, the recommendation is to establish the new pool head or the new trailhead with all of those things included in our recommendation.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. I just know this is big and I want to make sure it's done correctly.
It's okay. You should have fired me yesterday when you had the chance.
Sorry, man. You're here forever. To trailhead from Lake Street to and would include recommendations for diagonal parking near the tennis courts, the relocation of bear-proof trash can. Okay, cool. I got it now. Thank you, guys. Looks like we lost Jay for a second as well. He's hopping back in.
All right. You want to make a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Any opposed? All right, moving on. Nancy, I should have given you the opportunity to to do this earlier. But you're a trooper, and we may want you to hang around because I think, you know, we still have a couple of unfinished items. So, Nancy, if you would be kind enough to give us a Trails Ambassadors update.
Of course. So some of you might have known that the orientation that was going to be happening this Sunday I only had one signed up, so I contacted Aaron and he decided that we should cancel. But on the positive side, I had 6 new people contact me. They couldn't do the in-person training, so I gave them the video. So at least that's 6 new people. I think I'm up to 18.
That is great. That is something to celebrate.
I'm sort of excited about that. I did get my first Sign Up Genius published. I was sort of waiting to see where the new Welcome Center is, how that's progressing. I'm going to send that out this week in an email to all the ambassadors who have signed up already, so that they can go to that link and start signing up for shifts. I have on there the location Maple and Ute Pass Avenue. So I'm going to sort of go into a little bit more detail in my email that there might not be a sign there yet, but that's where we're going to be. So just get used to being there. So that's going to be going out this week, and been coordinating with Matt, the amazing Matt. He's going to be making me some copies, because I think Matt and I sort of went back and forth on this. I'm going to have each ambassador go ahead and sign a town waiver, liability waiver again for this year, just so that we have that on file. And then also I have I'm going to have like emergency numbers, the Hiker 5, when we get maps, frequently asked questions, scenarios. I'm going to have all of that printed out and on a clipboard for each one of the ambassadors to use. I'm not going to have each ambassador have a clipboard. We're going to be sharing, but I'm going to like laminate them or put them in paper, sheet protectors, so that possibly maybe have a hook on the new Welcome Center to where, when one ambassador leaves, the other ambassador can come and grab it. Sort of still trying to figure that out logistically in my mind, but Matt's going to be printing all that out for me at Town Hall, so I don't have to go buy another ink cartridge. And I think that's about it, not unless Don has some information about the scarves.
I do. I just got the last quote in this morning. I just threw the net out there and got some different options to consider. The bandanas, one color, embroidered, $8 each. Patches, $8 each. Hats, embroidered, $15 each. Buttons, aluminum buttons, they're $2.70 each. And still want t-shirts, $11 each.
Don, do you know if there were any minimum purchase requirements on those?
No, these were priced all on 25 or less.
Okay. I think Nancy should tell us her wish list off of that.
Well, since Don said I had unlimited budget, right? Don, isn't that what you said? I like the idea of the scarves. Like you said, the t-shirts are, then you get into sizes. I would like to use up the t-shirts that we've got. I think Deani still has some, and she still has some buttons. So we'll have to do sort of where she can, we can meet up and I can get the materials from her. But personally, I like the idea of a scarf. I think it's one size fits all. It'd be nice to have some more buttons if possible. Those are sort of easy to just put on. So patches, you have to sit down and sew, and who's going to do that? So yeah, my preference would be scarves and buttons.
How about hats? Do you like the idea of hats?
Well, I'm trying to minimize what we're spending. Hats would be great if you guys want to spend $15 a hat. I mean, that's up to you as a committee. I just want to let you know I'm satisfied with the scarves.
This is Gianni. Just to give input on, how things went last year, I would say my recommendation based on seeing, the supplies that were left over is to see what your turnout is like, and, start with something like one easy item. And if there are a lot of people or people express specific needs, then to start spending more money on other additional items at that point. But otherwise, we may have a lower turnout than expected and end up with a lot of items left over that you've paid for. The other thing that I had been contemplating last year is trying to come up with some type of incentive program to get the volunteers to continue to take on shifts repeatedly or to come back the next year. And so I don't know if badges or something could be used as an incentive for retention or something like that. Just a thought.
If I may as well, just going through the budget, I would make the recommendation to this committee to include options and have like a low cost option to a ideal wish list option and have that as a part of the recommendation. So there's maybe some choice for the board to make. But if I was in their shoes, based on our limited budget, I really think the buttons would probably be the best way to go in terms of cost savings. I know it's not the most cool thing to have or most visible necessarily, but we're very strapped in being able to do something big. And I know it's only $8, but $8 is big here.
And the buttons that we actually have, they were donated to us. So I believe another friends group, neighboring friends group had donated the large buttons. My mom actually has a button maker, and so she made a lot of the little buttons. So yeah, so I mean, if someone has access to a big button maker machine, I can try and look around, and that might save some cost for the program.
So yeah, I'm good with buttons.
What neighbor?
So if you're good with buttons as a minimum,
Okay, let me know.
then since you already have 18 people, is that what you said signed up?
I do, but some of those were from last year. So some of those do have t-shirts and buttons already. So I honestly don't know who has what, to tell you the truth. So I know Todd and I have t-shirts and buttons, but I don't know about the other people who worked on it last year. So.
And I can give you a list of everyone who was given a t-shirt. I have a fair number of the larger buttons and smaller buttons still available. And there are a couple of t-shirts in different sizes. So I can work with you separately to try and figure some of that out.
Sounds good.
Rebecca had to take off. I don't know if anybody saw that in the chat. She's taken off.
So Nancy, when we talk about a minimum here, if you already have 18, some may have things, some that they may not. Do you think 30 is a reasonable number that we think that, we could go through 30 this summer?
I think we could. I mean, I think more that it becomes visible and more that, the word might get around and people realizing that it might just be 2 hours a month or, 4 hours a month. I think we're going to get a little bit more participation. I understand now why people poll people as far as how did you hear about this program? Because I'd be really interested to know if it was through Facebook or my flyers or the town website. It'd just be interesting to see how they found out. But yeah, I think 30 should be good.
So minimum on your wish list would be 30 buttons and maximum would be 30 scarves.
30 scarves.
Okay. So, Matt, I'll make that motion then, that we supply the Trails Ambassadors with a minimum of 30 Trails Ambassadors buttons and a maximum order for the program of 30 scarves and 30 buttons. Clay, did you second that?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. It's hard to see you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Being none. Nancy, thank you so much. And Don, thank you
course.
for doing the legwork on that pricing. Appreciate it.
A quick question. Who is putting together the recommendation that lists this?
I think that was our motion.
Because I got the motion, but like, is it in some kind of with quotes and costs that show those things? Like instead of just having a single document that says, this is what we want, this is what we want, here's the cost that we've researched, something like that. Could you guys get that to me by say Friday?
Yes. You want to do that, Nancy, or do you want me to do it? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Rebecca ditched us again right before we got to her.
Of course, but after seeing why in the chat, I'm not mad at all.
Right.
I respect it. I'm still bummed out about it.
Clay was not with us last time and is not aware that we are needing a secretary. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up again, is that we are looking to appoint a new secretary to PRT to allow Matt to do some other things than take minutes. He would still be our liaison and is not leaving the group, but Don and Clay, you have the opportunity to say you'd like to do that, or we can table it to the next meeting with Rebecca here as well. And Nancy, just having her fingers crossed that she doesn't get called in next.
Rebecca must have known it was coming because she had to leave all of a sudden.
Yeah, she said in the chat she had a neighbor fall. So just all kidding aside with Rebecca, she's definitely qualified to do it, and I'm hopeful that she will. But still, Clay and Don have the opportunity, or someone besides me can make a motion to move it to the next meeting. Table it.
I'll move that we table it until the next meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. No opposing, so we will move forward to new business. And Jay, do you want to? Did we lose Jay?
Yes, and so I've been waiting to see if he was going to bounce back. He tried joining in a couple times, and he would get in for a second and then get bounced back out again.
Okay. So I'm going to give a brief update and then make a suggestion. The forestry department and Colorado Springs Utilities met with the town manager, and Rebecca and Jay both were able to attend that meeting. And they basically did an inventory of our trails, and they looked at trail systems which had possible connections or valid connections. They looked at connections with Colorado Springs Utilities property and forestry department property. And based on that site visit, the staff members who joined from the forestry department were going to make some recommendations to forestry management about some possible trail closures or relocations. So all that we know at this time is that this staff person believed that she was going to make recommendations to make some changes. I believe that we should wait to hear from management there, because we don't want to overreact if nothing is happening, but we do want to start getting our ducks in a row in case they do. So I know that Jay is going to put together a list of county commissioners that we could write to. I'm going to have a telephone conversation with Susan Davies at the Open Space Coalition about what her recommendations would be in that scenario. So I don't really see that there is an action that we need to take on this today. I don't want to feel like we're always kicking things down the road, but there's really nothing to respond to yet on this, other than to give you all an update of what has occurred to date.
I have a question. Jesse, do you know how this meeting got established?
I believe that this meeting was established, and my memory is fuzzy, but I believe the memory that the meeting was established after the Mount Dewey Trail closure last year, and after the revelation of ongoing trespassing or possible encroachments, call them whatever you will. But I think the town manager reached out to these entities and just for the case of making sure that everything is right, set up the meeting. And the meeting has been, I think this meeting has been scheduled for, I think it was scheduled maybe even last fall, but they weren't able to actually get it done until now. And that's my belief of how it happened. I wasn't involved in the play-by-play. What I should say is that I received an email, or our committee received an email from the town manager letting us know that the meeting was going to occur, and gave us the opportunity to have some members present, and they attended, would be my official answer.
Thank you.
So with no action to take on that one, if you all agree, I mean, I actually really want to hear your input here, because if this, if something comes up, I want us to be able to react quickly. So other than Jay speaking with Friends of the Ute Pass Trails, and other than myself speaking with Susan Davies, is there anything else? And we can, without violating any sunshine laws, we can have two people involved in any of those conversations. And Dawn and Rebecca, I will draft either one of you or Clay into that conversation with Susan Davies, because as you all know, I probably have the least experience concerning trails on this committee.
Okay, Jesse, I'd like to say that having Catamount hook up to the Ring the Peak Trail would be a really beneficial thing for the area. And I don't know if there is a county commissioner or somebody favorable to our trails that might be interested in this that we could reach out to, and perhaps Susan Davies would have a better idea of who to contact.
I think we're asking the right person the right questions there with Susan.
Okay.
So Rebecca, why don't I set up that call and have you join me on that? Is Clay and Don, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Works for me.
Okay. All right, so we'll be proactive here on this one. And then as a second thing, Rebecca can ask that question, because that makes a lot of sense. And I think that would be better than the Mount Esther suggestion that has been discussed over the years. So I think that's it. Don, do you have anything else on that?
I'm in agreement with you. I think we don't have a lot of options at this point. We just need to see what what the bureaucracy in those two arenas, ultimately what they decide, and we'll deal with it then.
Well, Clay, if you don't mind speaking to this, I think you probably have your own perspective, and I'd like to I'd like to know what it is.
Well, I mean, it would be a great thing if we could get the Forest Service to buy off on that trail so it was a legal trail connecting to the Ring the Peak. That would make our trail system even more popular and usable, because it would, for the longevity of the trails. I think it'd be a good thing, but I think the biggest thing is we're doing what we need to do to make them legal. I mean, the trails are a big part of town, and if we lose Catamount Trail, that's going to be a real travesty to the whole trail system. If we lose Crystal Trail, that would be bad, but it wouldn't be near as bad as Catamount. So, you know, the Forest Service, from when I read the note, it was a lot of the stuff on the trail was it doesn't comply. Well, you know, when we talked to that, maybe we could make it comply or get variances or something to try to make it legal.
Sure, I think, yeah, absolutely correcting anything that's not. If we receive word back from management, then they will probably have some suggestions, or we will find out what the appeal process is and sort of work through whatever our options are, and there will be some.
Yeah.
Jesse, I'd like to say that Catamount Trail, they weren't proposing that we close the entire trail, just the part that contacts the Forest Department land, which is way up past the bridge, Steve's Bridge, the bridge Don built. It's past there, so it would just be an up and back trail and not a loop trail. So the suggestion was not to close Catamount Trail. That's part one. Part two is we could not possibly make Catamount Trail conform to the National Forest Service requirements. I mean, just by the fact that it's all rock, they would want it to be multi-use. It's inconceivable that it could be constructed that way. It would have to be totally relocated somehow. Just to be clear.
Did they talk about the ownership of the trail, rather the Forest Service own the trailhead, Rebecca, right down in Green?
They were totally unconcerned about the trailhead. Oh, only that they think it's too steep right there. But no, they're not concerned with the location of the trailhead.
No, that is Forest Service land and not.
They are unconcerned about whose land that is. They're only concerned about Forest Department land that is up past the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and this is why I think it's important for us to receive information from management there about whatever their concerns are, whatever changes they want, because you know, it's a bureaucracy and it may never happen. It may go up the flagpole to someone who thinks that, no, that's been there forever and I approved that 15 years ago. We don't know what's going to happen. So I think we not panic, but prepare. Certainly we have a big workload now, and one of the things that's still on our goals list is to start looking at each trail individually and looking at these issues for safety's sake on our own side, to make sure that going forward we don't run into these issues. So it's definitely not going away, and we will start addressing them one by one. We could, with Rebecca back, jump back to old business. Item D, Rebecca.
There is no way I will ever be a secretary again. The end. That's why I came back. I thought in my absence you would do this to me.
We did not. We skipped over. I didn't even suggest that we just that we not give you the option, but we had to ask.
Thank you. I feel honored, but no.
I quit. Bye.
Well, another problem to solve. But not today. Matt, do we have any correspondence?
We do not have any correspondence for this meeting.
Does anyone have a report that they have not given during this meeting yet? Then I will thank you all for a very long meeting where we got a lot of accomplished and a lot of things finalized. A few of us have some homework due to Matt, and we'll get that in.
Question, when's our
yes.
next meeting? Are we gonna have one on the 26th?
Let's do.
I'm not gonna be available.
Okay.
That's why I was asking. I'm gonna be,
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Out of
put one
town.
on the calendar, and we can always we can change our mind between now and then. But I think we'll have a lot of responses from the Board of Trustees, and we want to keep our momentum going. We have a lot of things that we're trying to get geared up for the summer. And again, I appreciate you guys sitting through the Wayfinding Signage task force meeting. That was got you all in the loop about what's going on there. So I will adjourn at 6:24. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Matt.
Yeah, so my thought is we're going to make these people draw straws. No.